Hi guys, my name is Barry and welcome back to the channel. I'm going to be talking about 2024's The Bench. It's a Scottish independent horror movie. There won't be any spoilers in this video because I think if you're into Scottish horror films, maybe watch it and you can see it for yourself so there's no spoilers in it, so don't worry about that. The film has a very simple premise. It's about a group of people who go into the woods for whatever reason, and they get picked off one by a stranger in the woods. Now, this is quite a unique film because they started filming this movie in 2007 and they didn't semi-complete it until 2008. Now, after 2008, the film still wasn't finished because of other commitments that the actors had during the time, and they just ran out of money. So the film got abandoned in 2008. There was some rumours of the film being completed in 2012, and Bloody Disgusting reported it back in 2012 because they were interested that it was taking so long to be completed. But way back then, it still never got completed. If we fast forward to 2024, which is 17 years after the movie's production began, Bloody Disgusting re-reported it again because they were still fascinated by this movie that just never got completed until now. As far as I'm aware, the director Sean Wilkie was contacted by somebody to say, why don't we finish this film? There's a market for this movie in America. Do you mind if we market this film in America? And he thought, well, yeah, but we need to get this film completed. So they got someone in to complete the movie. They edited it and completed it after 17 years. Now, like I said, Bloody Disgusting re-reported the film because of how interesting that this whole project is, and they described it as an homage to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think that was maybe a wrong move because when you compare a film, especially an independent film, to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, then people have got high hopes for the movie. Me being Scottish, I was invited to the premiere for The Bench in June 2024 by Sean Wilkie, the director. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it, which I was gutted because I wanted to meet everybody there. I like to meet Scottish people when it comes to horror because they've got the same interests. I wanted to meet some of the actors. I wanted to meet Sean, the director, and other people that were involved in not just this film, but other Scottish horror films. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it due to work commitments, so I'm only getting round to see it now because it is on Amazon Prime now. I also had no idea that my friend Chris, who I've collaborated on quite a numerous times with his podcast, is one of the stars of this movie. He plays Tommy in The Bench, and it's something that he never mentioned to me when I was doing this collaboration stuff with him, and it's probably because he maybe forgot that he filmed the movie because he didn't film it until maybe 2007, 2008, and I didn't meet Chris until 2023, so it's 15 years, so his memory's probably gone by now. But I went into this movie with very low expectations because it is a Scottish film. Scottish horror films are few and far between, they're very rare. I needed to remember it was an independent Scottish film with hardly any money, as well as the film taking so long to be completed. It already had the uphill task of being a film that was independent, of course, and because it never got finished filming until 2008, the film's already 16 years out of date. When you watch a film that's independent today, it already looks cheap and cheerful, but when you look at a film that's 16 years old, then of course it's going to look even worse. When it comes to the aesthetic of this film, it does hurt the movie because you can tell the film is cheap, but being 16 years out of date, then it really goes against it because they used obviously technology from 2008 and it shows. I think the film doesn't look aesthetically good at all. There's some scenes that you could get away with. I think some scenes look pretty good, and if this film came out in 2008, aesthetically I would be like, that's pretty impressive. Acting wise, it actually wasn't too bad. Some scenes were pretty decent, but it was cringy for me because I'm Scottish. When I hear someone with a Scottish accent, I cringe, not because they're bad actors. When I hear Billy Connolly talk, when I hear James McAvoy talk, it's cringy because they're from my country. But the acting wasn't terrible. There were some people that weren't too good at all. But I was actually surprised with Tommy, played by my friend Chris. And I'm not just saying that because I know Chris. I think Tommy's acting is pretty good. I think if he kept it up, he may have got somewhere. But looking at his IMDb credits, it seems like Chris hasn't done much since then. So Chris, if you're watching, get back into acting. You're actually really good. The dialogue in the movie was very dated. Obviously, it's 2008, but it was also formulaic. It was almost like they were saying things that they think the dialogue would be like in an American film, but I think what they should have done was stuck with the Scottish dialogue. What would a Scottish person do in a situation they were in? Whereas they were given us American dialogue in a Scottish accent, so it didn't quite work, especially since the dialogue was set in 2008. I will say that the kill scenes and the practical effects were great. Even for 2024, they were still pretty great. I don't think there was any CGI. It looked like it was all practical. Some of the kills were off screen. Some of the kills were just off screen as well, like this. So you couldn't really see what was happening. That was understandable because of the budget that they had. But when you do see some of the kill moments and some of the wounds that they had, I thought it was pretty impressive. I think my biggest issue with the film was the overall story. At some points, I wasn't quite understanding what was going on. Sometimes the story chopped from one bit to another, and there was this twist at the end of the movie, which I won't spoil for you. The twist was a cool twist, but it didn't really have a build-up of anything. It just came out of the blue. Had they thought about it and gave us something in the build-up to it, I think the twist would have been more understandable, but it just felt like it came out of nowhere just for the sake of a twist. The twist reminded me of Friday the 13th from 1980, where it didn't have a payoff. When you look at Pamela Voorhees in the Friday the 13th movie, she came out of nowhere. We had no chance to guess who the killer was because it was a killer that we're never introduced to until the end of the film. Now, I'm not saying that's what happens in The Bench. It's not a character that we're just introduced to at the end. It's just a twist that there was a backstory that just came out of nowhere at the end of the film. So had it been fed throughout a little better, then it would have been a better payoff. I think the fact that they didn't edit the movie until 16 years after filming ended, I think that might be the reason why the film was choppy. I think after 16 years, you could go back to something and go, what was my intention there? I can't really remember my intentions for that scene. So when you're editing it and putting it together, that might be the reason why it's choppy, because it's 16 years out of date and it's 16 years of you thinking, why did I do that again? At face value, it's not a good film, and it seems like I'm trying to give it some excuses, but ultimately it is a 16-year-old movie at the end of the day. It is an independent film at the end of the day as well. So if you're trying to re-edit an independent movie that didn't cost anything at all from 16 years ago, you have to cut them some slack. I will say though, hats off to them for going back to it and trying their best with something, and the fact that they were able to do it. They were on BBC in the UK. They were on different websites as well. So there's obviously some traction for this film, especially in America, because Americans are eating it up. It's on Amazon Prime, and some Americans are liking the film as well. So it's good to see Scottish horror films, which are few and far between, making it over the pond into a different country. If I had any involvement in this movie, which I wish I did, I would go back and re-edit and reshoot some scenes, maybe shoot some scenes with different cast being younger and a build up to the twist that they had. Maybe that would explain the twist a little bit more, or even go back with some of the cast members who are willing to go back and shoot some extra scenes for maybe scenes set in the future where this is what's happening now, and they genuinely are older as well, 16 years older. That would add to the aesthetic to the movie and maybe explain a few things as well, and maybe go back and shoot some scenery with better technology. I don't know. I think maybe if you'd done something like that and worked it into the movie, not only would it look aesthetically better, it would add to the story as well, and maybe add to the runtime, because the film's only on for 71 minutes. Give it a bit more runtime, beef it up a little bit with the story, and maybe it would be more coherent. Overall though, guys, it's not the best horror movie of the year, far from it, but I do commend everyone involved going back to reshoot something and footage that they had from 16, 17 years ago. So it's something that you can be proud of. If you're watching and you're part of this movie, definitely be proud of that, and maybe that will give you the momentum to go and shoot something else, a new story, a new horror film, hopefully, from Scottish talent with new technology. Learn from your mistakes, build on them, and make something bigger and better. And hopefully, because you will be involved in it, send that over to America and say, we were the makers of The Bench. This is what we're doing now. Look how far we've come. So if you've seen this movie, guys, leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think of it, and I'll talk to you soon.
Meeting adjourned.
I'll be right back.
to get you, Barbara.
Ever played Skin the Cat?
Someone's in the